Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's the CD guy, Johnny Z here. Thank you so much for tuning back into the channel, and today I'm going to be counting down the top 20 greatest classic rock album openers of all time. This is a sequel video to my last upload when I counted down the 20 best metal album openers of all time, so if you've not checked out that video, please go ahead and do so. I'll leave the link down below. That's the countdown where you'll find, Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, Metallica, Iron Maiden, etc., etc. But today, I thought, why not do a sequel? Why not count down the best classic rock album openers? And so with that in mind, let's get started here with my number 20. I'm going to go with Surrender by Cheap Trick from Heaven Tonight from 1978. There are a few bands that are more fun to listen to than Cheap Trick, and one of my favorite songs of theirs is Surrender, the opener here for Heaven Tonight from 78. It's, the band at their best in my opinion here, and Surrender is just such a fun, catchy album opener to start what I think is their best studio output here in Heaven Tonight. Great album, awesome opener here with Surrender. Just a ton of fun to listen to in my opinion. Kicking us off here with my number 20, gotta go with Surrender by Cheap Trick. Next to number 19, I'm gonna go with Gimme All Your Lovin' by ZZ Top from the 1983 Eliminator record. Eliminator was ZZ Top's most commercially successful release, spawning 4 hit singles, including Gimme All Your Lovin' to start things off here. I absolutely love the drumming on this track, as well as the increased use of synthesizers, as seen on the rest of this album as well. So, in hindsight, it does sound very 80s, but it's just a really fun, feel-good rocker of a track to kick off Eliminator. Like I said, their most successful record, and one of their all-time best as well. Following that up here with my number 18, I definitely wanted to include Gentle Giant here on this list from the prog rock scene. One of the most underrated progressive rock bands of all time. Gentle Giant never really made much of an attempt to endear themselves to the mainstream, instead focusing on bringing their unique brand of the progressive sound into the world in, the way that they envisioned it. So, starting here with Giant, the first track on their debut record, self-titled. Lyrics are really cool, and I love Derek Sherman's vocals on here. I think it's the perfect gateway to what was a different and experimental debut record as part of a thriving early 70s progressive rock scene. So, that said, wickedly underrated remain Gentle Giant, awesome progressive band from the 70s, and on their debut record, Giant, first track on there is absolutely fantastic in my opinion. We're going to stay in the early 70s here for my number 17 on the list. Let's go with School's Out by the original Alice Cooper Band. Great title track here on this record, probably Alice's best known song, I'd say, but another really fun album opener here in my opinion. And a lot of people say, look at this record and they look at the title track School's Out and they say, well, the band had this one hit track for sure, and they just fill the rest of the album with filler. I don't necessarily agree with that. I do not think this is a one-song record. I really enjoyed just about everything else on here, but there's no denying that School's Out is the true highlight of this album. Just, a fantastic track, obviously lots of fun. You got some classic Alice Cooper lyricism in there, awesome opening riff as well. It's a timeless track in my opinion, and great way to kick off this record, again, in fun fashion here. This is the original Alice Cooper group at their best, right? The time where they were really on top of the world. Following up Killer from 1971, in 1972, School's Out. Great album here, just turned 50 last year, and the title track is iconic for many reasons. A timeless song here by Alice, and just great stuff. My number 17 on the list. I talked before about how much I love the experimentation on Gentle Giant's debut album here, so once again, talking about more experimentation on a debut record, let's go with Sunday Morning by the Velvet Underground, the first track from their debut record here from 1967. This is a record that was definitely ignored upon its release, and, at the time, critics didn't really give it the light of day, but has since become one of the most influential art rock albums of all time, and its opener, Sunday Morning, is one of the best on the record as far as I'm concerned, dabbling in psychedelia throughout with some really interesting, almost trippy lyrics by Lou Reed here, great vocal delivery, and I think it does a great job of establishing the atmosphere of this album right away, which is something I look for and what makes a great opening track. So with that said, coming in at number 16, we have Sunday Morning by the Velvet Underground from their debut album from 1967. Number 15, Cat Scratch Fever by Ted Nugent, the title track to one of his best-known records here. I mean, that opening riff is absolutely monstrous and one of the most recognizable, I think, in rock history. Nugent has always been known for his great guitar work, which really does shine, not just on this track, but on the whole record as well. The song is such an earworm, and I'm pretty sure it's also one of the most covered songs in rock and metal. Off the top of my head, I can definitely think of, two great covers of Cat Scratch Fever, that being by Pantera and Motorhead, which are both definitely worth a listen, but neither of them are as strong as the original, in my opinion. Coming in at number 15 here, we have Cat Scratch Fever by Ted Nugent. I'd say probably his best-known song. When it comes to Van Halen, I think a lot of people will probably go with Running with the Devil from their debut album when it comes to, what's their best album opener, but for me, I'm going to go with Mean Street off of Fair Warning. I just prefer it to Running with the Devil in terms of what makes a great album opener here. I really enjoy how, different Fair Warning was to the albums at the time, right, taking a more darker tone, and that starts here with Mean Street. So for me, Running with the Devil, obviously the popular, probably most obvious choice for their best album opener. I'm going to go with Mean Street instead. One of my favorite Van Halen songs, one of the first Van Halen songs I ever heard, as a matter of fact, which I heard on an iPod, which should tell you how long ago that was. But nonetheless, I really do enjoy this track. I definitely have Fair Warning on vinyl. I could not find it for this video, but it's a great record here. Seeing the band take a bit of a darker approach lyrically as well, so that's really interesting and projected here on Mean Street. First track on Fair Warning. Again, I'm not going to go with Running with the Devil here, even though I definitely could. Mean Street, one of my favorite VH songs of all time. Definitely one of my favorites from the David Lee Roth era, which, if you follow my channel, you know I'm a bigger fan of the Van Hagar stuff, but never did I say that I did not enjoy the David Lee Roth era as well. I think it's all really solid stuff. So, with that said, my number 14 on the list, maybe a bit unpredictably, but I'm going to go with Mean Street by Van Halen from Fair Warning. Number 13, I'm going to go with a pick by Kiss, and there were a few that I was considering for this spot. Obviously, Strutter from their debut record comes to mind, and so does Got to Choose from their second album, Hotter Than Hell. But the reason I didn't go with those two tracks is because I'm just not a fan of the flat-sounding production on those records, so they're much better live, but when it comes to album openers, I just feel like they sound a little flat on the record, so I didn't include those, and I was going to go with Detroit Rock City, but then I thought, you know what, I've heard that song to death. I just feel like there may be better songs in the Kiss catalog that maybe I haven't heard a million times, that are a bit underrated. So with that in mind here, coming in at number 13 on the list, I'm going to go with I Stole Your Love from Love Gun from 1977. This is my favorite Kiss album of all time here. I Stole Your Love, probably an underrated song from this record, considering you have classics on here like the title track, Shock Me, Christine 16, Almost Human, Plaster Caster, but I Stole Your Love, great opener here, just a little over 3 minutes long. It's fast-paced, lots of fun, in my opinion. Great rocker of a song to start off this record here, which, in my opinion, is perfect from top all the way almost to the bottom. Then She Kissed Me being the only song in here that I really don't like, but what I enjoy about this album opener here is just a fun, feel-good track to kick things off here, and, at the end of the day, that's a lot of what Kiss's music was geared towards, just, fun, feel-good sounding music, so I think that this is a perfect example of that. Coming in at number 13 here, we have I Stole Your Love from Love Gun from 1977. Number 12 is going to go to Tie Your Mother Down by Queen from A Day at the Races. One of my favorite Queen songs of all time here. I didn't want to go with the obvious We Are the Champions here for this list because I've heard that song to death, probably never need to hear it again, and I just feel like Tie Your Mother Down is a better track, all things considered, just my opinion. Probably one of their heavier songs, but starts off with this instrumental intro here, which is later reprised in the last song of the record, kind of bringing things full circle at the end, right? A loop from beginning to end here, but then you get this killer riff by Brian May, and that really kicks things into second gear, in my opinion. It might not be Freddie Mercury's best vocal performance, and it's probably not as dramatic as We Are the Champions, but again, it's one of their heavier tracks. I really enjoy it. I think it works perfectly as an energetic open to A Day at the Races. So that said, coming in at number 12, let's go with the classic Tie Your Mother Down by Queen. On my number 11, you can hear progressive rock history being made. I'm going to go with 21st Century Schizoid Man by King Crimson from their debut album here. The riff is really cool. It's got this distorted kind of a vocal to it, which I think is really interesting and different from anything that was being done at the time. King Crimson brought the unique brand of music into the mainstream here with this record, and progressive rock would never be the same again. Really birthing prog rock as we know and love it today would be forged on 21st Century Schizoid Man. A classic for sure. A really fun album opener to boot. It's got this great grandiose kind of a feel to it as well, which I really enjoy. King Crimson, one of my favorite progressive rock bands of all time, so I never miss an opportunity to include them here on lists like this, and I think 21st Century Schizoid Man, not just one of their best songs in general, but one of their all-time best album openers as well. The first track here on their debut record, making a first impression here with this really awesome track coming in at number 11 here on the list. Breaking into the top 10 here, I'm going to go with Shine On You Crazy Diamond by Pink Floyd from Wish You Were Here. Now, of course, the portion that starts the record is parts 1 through 5, but I really enjoy the end part as well, that being 6 through 9, but, for me personally, I think that 1 through 5 is the best part of this song. Just excellent instrumentation. It builds and builds and builds. Really class musicianship here by Pink Floyd on what I think is their best record, even though I do go back and forth on that from time to time. It was hard to pick, a choice here from Pink Floyd because, when it comes to Animals, they don't have a great album opener there. The Wall, the album opener is part of a bigger thing, right? When it comes to Dark Side of the Moon, I really don't like to isolate tracks from that album. I think it's best to look at the entire record as one. So I could have gone with One of These Days from Metal, which I think is a great album opener as well, but for me personally, the best has to be Shine On You Crazy Diamond. Awesome stuff here. Love the instrumentation, the whole vibe of this track, inspired by Syd Barrett. Really, really cool stuff here. I dig it and find it to be the best album opener in the Pink Floyd catalog. So that said, it kicks us off here in the top 10. Number 9 on the list is going to go to Led Zeppelin and Whole Lotta Love here from Led Zeppelin 2. Of course, a legendary track here from a legendary album. I really enjoy Whole Lotta Love quite a bit, and there were a few great Led Zeppelin album openers I could have gone with. Obviously, you have Good Times, Bad Times, you have Black Dog as well, Immigrant Song. So I really had my choice here of a few great album openers to go with, which seems to be a recurring theme here with a lot of the entries here on this list. But I decided to go with Whole Lotta Love because I love the groove to it, love the rhythm, the vocals by Robert Plant. I think it's a total earworm as well, and probably my favorite album opener in the Zeppelin catalog. It's one of those songs that you hear played on classic rock radio all the time. So yes, I've heard it a billion times, but it's one of those tracks that the more I hear it, I just never get tired of for some reason. Even though it doesn't work always that way for other tracks. For Whole Lotta Love, it's a timeless song in my opinion, and I never get tired of listening to it. Great album opener here to Led Zeppelin 2, an iconic record for sure, starting off really, really strong. Coming in at number 8 here, let's go with Baba O'Riley from Who's Next by The Who from 1971. Like Whole Lotta Love, it's, one of those tracks that's played all the time on classic rock radio, but I just never get tired of hearing it. Who's Next, great record here, but it starts off in fantastic fashion with this powerful track, Baba O'Riley. Lots of fun, got some really great vocals here by Roger Daltrey, who was absolutely in his prime here as a vocalist at the time, and then I love that bridge in the middle with some awesome vocals by Pete Townsend as well. Really cool lyrics here on this track that I enjoy very much so, and I love that intro, super recognizable. Great stuff. This track just builds and builds and builds, and it's absolutely iconic for many reasons. It's one of the Who's best for a good reason as well. So with that in mind, coming in at number 8 here, we have Baba O'Riley from Who's Next by The Who from 1971. Let's go back to progressive rock here. For my number 7, we have Aqualung by Jethro Tull. Of course, Aqualung in general, this entire album, is an absolute masterpiece in my opinion. My introduction to Tull was through Iron Maiden's cover of Cross-Eyed Mary, great B-side, and then I listened to the version of Cross-Eyed Mary from this album, which is the second track here on this record, but I listened to the album in its entirety, and I listened to Aqualung first. That's really what hooked me on this album here, the title track. Great album opener as well, really interesting lyrics and great delivery as well. It's got a really awesome vibe to it that helps to establish the character of Aqualung, and of course Ian Anderson on lead vocals does a fantastic job here. Great musicianship as always, which is a recurring theme, not just on this list, but also in the Tull catalog, so awesome work there in my opinion. A great album opener as far as I'm concerned, Aqualung, to kick off this classic record. At number 6, I'm going to go with Two of Us by the Beatles from Let It Be. Let It Be in general is probably the most underrated Beatles album from that, classic later era of the band, and of course it was released after the band had officially disbanded, but got some great stuff on it, including Two of Us, which features a great vocal duet here by Paul McCartney and John Lennon with some really awesome lyrics, and I was really torn when it comes to picking my favorite Beatles album opener here between Help, Two of Us as well, Back in the USSR, and Taxman, but ultimately I'm going to go with Two of Us here. I think it's probably the most meaningful song out of the bunch here, although Help has some pretty deep lyrics as well, but Two of Us, great song, really calming vibe to it as well. I love the atmosphere this track creates, and of course, again, great vocals here by McCartney and Lennon, iconic songwriting and singing duo here who are, for one of the last times in the Beatles catalog, singing together in what I think is a really fantastic album opener in Two of Us, coming in at number 6 here on the list. Really underrated in my opinion. Maybe some people will think this is a little bit high on the list, but it's one of my favorite Beatles tracks of all time, and, again, it was hard to choose which great Beatles album opener to go with, but ultimately, I think Two of Us is strong enough to make the number 6 spot here on the list. We break into the top 5 now with the return of the Thin White Duke, David Bowie here, with Station to Station, the great title track here to this record. At over 10 minutes long, it's Bowie's longest studio recording, and has been described by a lot of people as a great middle ground in Bowie's transition to a more experimental sound that would be seen on his next album, Low. So people have described it as a great middle ground between Young Americans and Low. So I can definitely hear that, right? Bowie experimenting a bit here on this track. It's longer. It starts off kind of, slow, right? But it's built around this great guitar riff. And the second half is more, progressive with a little bit of a disco element to it. So some have called it art rock. It's very different, I think, but Bowie makes it work. They called him the musical chameleon for a very good reason. He could kind of adapt to pretty much any kind of subgenre or genre of music here and make it his own. And that's what he did on Station to Station, in my opinion. Number 4, Welcome to the Jungle by Guns N' Roses. This is an obvious one, but I mean, how could I not go with GNR here and The Open to Appetite for Destruction? Welcome to the Jungle, a powerful album opener. Another one of those timeless songs. Even though I hear it 8 billion times, it's still a great track every time I hear it. Got that awesome intro, right, to kick off this record here. Just iconic stuff by GNR. This was the band at their absolute best, in my opinion. Their best iteration as well. Young, in their prime, releasing their debut record here, which, you know, is just about perfect from top to bottom, including Welcome to the Jungle, which is one of the true highlights here of this album. And, you know, when it comes to some of the best GNR songs of all time, this has to be right up there at the top. I'd say when it comes to my top 3 Guns N' Roses songs of all time, I probably have to go with My Michelle, Civil War, and Welcome to the Jungle. You know, even though Welcome to the Jungle is more of a, you know, an obvious, predictable pick here, right? It's one of their better-known songs. It's a classic for good reason, and the more I hear it, it never gets old. Great stuff to kick off this fantastic record. Love the vocals here by Axl, and the lyrics, the delivery, the solo by Slash. It's all there, and it's all fantastic, in my opinion. An epic track to open things up here on Appetite for Destruction. We have Welcome to the Jungle by GNR. Number 3 is going to be Sympathy for the Devil by Rolling Stones here from Beggar's Banquet. I mean, again, is it a little bit predictable here? Is it one of those songs you hear on classic rock radio all the time? Yes, but the more I listen to this track, the more I appreciate the songwriting here, the lyricism here on this open to Beggar's Banquet. It's fantastic, and in my opinion, some of the best lyrics the Stones ever wrote. Just really great stuff here. In my opinion, though, the best version of the song isn't even on Beggar's Banquet, but rather on a Rock and Roll Circus, which I don't know if that's unpopular or not, but I really enjoy Rock and Roll Circus. I talked about that in the past when counting down the best classic rock live records, but for me, I think the best version of the song is on that recording there, but the studio version is fantastic. It's the one you hear on the radio all the time. The sound is fantastic. It's got this great vibe to it as well. Really cool delivery by Mick Jagger. So everything here working in the Stones' favor, in my opinion, absolutely belongs in the top 3 of any list of album openers as far as I'm concerned when it comes to some of the best in rock history. Got to go with Sympathy for the Devil from Beggar's Banquet. Coming in at number 2 here, we have 2112 by Rush. Good lord, this is such a fantastic song, taking up all of side 1 of the record here, broken up into 7 parts, but it's one track, really one piece, I'd say, that takes up all of side 1, and side 2 is pretty underrated, I think, in my opinion, but when you think about the greatness of side 1, this entire track here that takes it up, you understand why, you know, side 2 gets a bit overlooked, but nonetheless here, when looking at side 1 and all of 2112 here, the track here, which clocks in at over 20 minutes long, I mean, everything is great, from Overture, the Temples of Syrinx, Discovery, Presentation, Oracle, Soliloquy, Grand Finale. It's all fantastic in my opinion. Got, you know, different kind of vibes throughout, right? It gives up this kind of science fiction kind of an atmosphere, right? Some fantastic instrumentation from top to bottom. Geddy Lee's vocals on Temples of Syrinx they cut like a knife, and so for that reason, it's probably my favorite part of this track. It's really just some fantastic work here by the band, in my opinion. And I had you know, a tough time choosing between the best Rush album opener, between, you know, The Spirit of Radio and Tom Sawyer and 2112. It was definitely a tough decision, but ultimately I have to go here with 2112. Rush make 20 minutes fly by here with this great composition of just total brilliance as far as I'm concerned. And it's a progressive rock cornerstone for sure here. And again, I could have gone with a handful of other great Rush album openers here, but 2112 takes the cake for me. Before I get to my number 1, I have a handful of honorable mentions here, and you know, usually I do 5 honorable mentions, but I'm going to expand it a little bit here to more than 5 for this video here. So honorable mentions got to More Than a Feeling by Boston from their debut record, Moving On Over by George Thorogood, Twice in the Attic by Aerosmith, Break On Through to the Other Side by The Doors, Blitzkrieg Bop by The Ramones, Godzilla by Blue Oyster Cult, Tusk by Fleetwood Mac, and Piano Man by Billy Joel. All awesome honorable mentions here. Like I said, I did do an extended honorable mentions section here because I usually only do 5, but for the sake of, you know, including all of these here somewhat here on this list as honorable mention, I did want to expand it out and talk a little bit more about some great rock album openers that just could not make the list because I can only fit 20 here today, but lots more great album openers that I could not get to. So, you know, if your favorite album opener did not make this list, sorry, I can only fit 20 on the list, but please be sure to let me know your favorite down in the comment section below. Well, finally, coming in at number 1 here, I'm going to go with Highway to Hell by ACDC. Just a great album opener. In its simplicity, though, where you have the opening riff, which is just awesome. It's a timeless riff, so recognizable, one of the best in rock history. That great solo by Angus Young as well. Killer vocals and lyrics by Bon Scott on his last studio album with the band. It kicks things off here in just classic fashion as far as I'm concerned. There's a reason this is one of their best known tracks, and it's just so timeless, you know, for me at least. Highway to Hell, awesome song here, and I could have gone with a number of AC/DC great album openers. You know, pretty much anything from the Bon era is fantastic, but also Hell's Bells and For Those About to Rock were 2 tracks that I was considering here, but in my opinion, it just does not get any more, you know, pinnacle of ACDC, I think, than this era right here in terms of their studio output and what they were doing on Highway to Hell, and just kind of give you a glimpse into what the band would have sounded like into the 80s had Bon Scott not passed away in February of 1980. But on his last studio effort here, he goes out with a bang with Highway to Hell and that amazing album opener to close out the list here today. Classic stuff here for sure. So that wraps up this list here of my 20 favorite classic rock album openers of all time. Maybe some polarizing picks here. Maybe the order was a bit polarizing to some, but if you agree with my list, please let me know down in the comment section below. You can see the list right over here. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel down below, turn on the bell for notifications so you never miss a new upload. And again, I want to hear from you down in the comments section. Let me know all of your opinions down there. And until next time, it's the CD guy, Johnny Z, signing off. Take care, everybody.